If you've never played D&D before, the most intimidating thing that you'll ever see is the character sheet. Now, I've made this video to go in depth and explain what's all there on a character sheet. Fortunately for you, if you don't have 30 minutes to geek out about D&D character sheets, I've made a smaller video as well, and I've linked to it below. All right? With that said, let's dive in so that by the end of this video, you'll know what's on a character sheet and how to use it. Cheers. In this video, I'm going to be using this D&D 2014 character sheet to talk you through what's all over there. Now, if you're playing like a newer version of D&D, don't worry. There will be a lot of similarities, and whatever tweaks are there, you will be able to ask your Dungeon Master to help you out. Other character systems, like say Pathfinder or Blades in the Dark, they have different character sheets. This video is just for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Let's take a look. At the very top, we have a bunch of interesting information available in this box. First off is this word that says race and has dark elf written on this pre-generated character sheet. Race is perhaps a misnomer. From what I understand, this could be better spoken of as species. There are a variety of races available in Dungeons & Dragons. You have humans, elves, dwarves, Goliaths, drow, dark elves, tabaxi, a whole host of various species that you can play as. And each of these, they look different, they're of different sizes, and they have different innate abilities as well. All right. Then we have the level and the class. Now in D&D, players start at level 1 and they can usually go up to like level 20. And in this generated character sheet, we have a 3rd level character, and the class, which is essentially the profession that they have, is a wizard. And within brackets, we understand that there is a specialization of war magic. The most popular or common classes in D&D are the wizard, the fighter, the thief, rogue. We have the warlock, we have the sorcerer, we have the barbarian, we have the ranger, we have the cleric. And as you buy more and more different setting books and other books, you will have other classes. In this case, the wizard is a magic user. You have the rogue, who is a sneaky thief-like person. You have the ranger, who's very comfortable with the wild and surviving outside. You have the fighter, who's just a boring old fighter who can fight with like a bow and arrow or with a sword. You have the warlock, who has a patron who gives them special powers. You have the sorcerer, who's able to get magic because of some virtue of their bloodline and stuff like that. And you have the cleric, whose power comes from believing in some sort of a higher force or a higher belief. Similar to that is the paladin as well. And let's see what else we got. Yeah, that's what I can think of. Let's move on ahead. Then you have the background. Here it says mercenary veteran. Background is what sort of a flavor of character are they? What have they been before they have entered this adventure, right? So the mercenary veteran is somebody who's probably been in some sort of like a sellsword type company or, a sword for hire, so to speak, right? And they've been around for some time. So that's why they are mercenary veteran. There are other backgrounds that you can find in official published material, or you could invent your own as well. And I really enjoy that as a part of the character creation process. Now, one thing you must note, if you're playing a one-shot and your DM is giving you some sort of a pre-gen similar to what you're seeing on screen right now, that's okay. Do the best you want and discuss whatever changes you want to do with your Dungeon Master. Then we have size. Right now, the size listed over here is medium. Creatures go all the way from tiny to gargantuan, and that makes sense in terms of like in tactical combat, like how much space are they going to be using. You can imagine tiny is probably going to be the size of my fist or your fist, and gargantuan is probably going to be the size of a large school bus or school. Right. Then description, in case if there is any pertinent description that you want to write, you can write that down. And of course, player is the space where you would write a player name. That is your name. Now, you need to understand that in long-term games, when you have adventures that are going to be spanning multiple sessions, or you have short campaigns that are running for several months, you'd have the opportunity to invest a lot of time into creating this character. And whatever you're doing, just make sure that you run it past your Dungeon Master, okay? Then in the character sheet, we have a bunch of other information that I want to highlight, okay? Because D&D is a game where the Dungeon Master and the players are coming together to tell a story, the Dungeon Master is going to be representing the world, the monsters, the situation, and whatnot. The players, they need something to tell them about who they are in the game. And that's what the character sheet is doing, right? And one of the main things that you want to see is these numbers over here, right? So these are their core stats. The first one is strength. And of course, in D&D circles, the tomato example is the best. Strength is about how hard you can throw a tomato. I'll get around to these numbers in a bit, but just hear me out. Strength is about how hard you can throw a tomato. Dexterity is how well you can dodge a tomato that's been thrown at you. Constitution is about how much health that you will gain by eating said tomato. Intelligence is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting that said tomato in a fruit salad. And charisma is being able to sell a fruit salad with a tomato in it. Now, as you can see, these are the 6 core stats that are there in Dungeons and Dragons. And based on that, the stuff that you see over here, this alphabetically organized sorted list is the list of skills, all right? And these skills are derived from these 6 core stats. Now, when you're playing a game, excuse me, when you're playing a game, the small numbers, the ones in the ovals, are not something that you're usually going to be worried about. What you want to be careful about and what you want to pay attention to are these big numbers inside the boxes, okay? They are called modifiers. These are your core stats, and the plus or minus, whatever they are, that is your modifier. Whenever your dungeon master is asking you for a roll, you would have to roll a d20 and add this modifier or subtract it, depending on whether it's a positive or a negative number. A good heuristic that you have is you can understand that 10 would be the score of an average person. So if you have a 12, that means you are about 20% better than the average human. Whereas if you have, like, let's say a +5, means you are almost godlike in something. Okay, so these 6 are the core attributes or the core stats that you have as an adventurer. For different classes, you will have different numbers coming in, and also depending upon how the character sheet was made, those numbers can vary as well. Now, if you're playing in a one-shot adventure, whatever you're given, just roll with it. However, if you're going to be playing a longer game, speak to your Dungeon Master and they can help you figure out how you can create this character sheet. I'm not going to go into the details of how we're going to be doing that, but it's just so that you understand what's in your character sheet so that you can start and play the game. Okay, that said, from these 6 core stats, we have these different skills. These are perhaps the most commonly referred to numbers that's going to be popping up. Okay, now, how do we do this? Well, we're going to be looking at each of these skills. I'll explain what they are. Acrobatics is about your nimbleness and your agility and how well you can do things. Your animal handling is about how well you can interact with animals. Arcana is an understanding of magic and the weave and how magic is happening in the world. Athletics is about, what's the kind of stuff that you can do at the gym. Deception is about how you can trick people using your charisma. History is about what you remember about the past. Insight is about you reading the situation and getting, what's the vibes, what's happening over here. Intimidation is about using your force of personality or something to scare them into doing something. Investigation is where you are like Sherlock Holmes and trying to ascertain what are the different clues that you can get and what are you able to observe. Medicine is anything to do with medicines, herbs, plants, health, things like that. Nature is about your understanding of nature. Perception is about what you can gauge with your senses. Now, there is another number that is relevant over here, which comes down over here, which is your passive perception as well. Now, think of this as something that you can always notice with your background, but this is like actively you're testing, right? That's what comes in. Performance is about you being able to do something in front of an audience. Persuasion is your ability to convince others. Religion is usually used for checks when the dungeon master is asking you something about, like the gods and religion and whatever you have. Sleight of hand is about being able to use your hands to trick things and to steal things and things like that. Your nimbleness of your fingers, if you will. Stealth is your ability to sneak. And survival is about the kind of skills that you would need to actually survive out in the wild. It could be about tying knots, it could be about navigating, it could be about foraging, whatever, what have you, right? So these are the skills that you have. Now you can see that there are many numbers over here, and some of them are already written up as a +4, +2, whatever. And that's because of these circles that are already covered in, okay? That means you're proficient in them, and therefore this is the special modifier that you would want to use, right? Same thing for history as well. However, you notice that investigation doesn't have anything, but they're all intelligence-based scores, right? So this is also intelligence. This is also intelligence. Why is that? It's because you see these are your things that you're already proficient in. So you would add a 4 to the roll whenever your DM is asking you for an Arcana check or for a history check. But if they're asking for investigation check, there's nothing over here. So what you do is pop on over here. You see that your intelligence is 2. Boom. So whatever you get is just a +2 in that. Okay. So that's what you would add, and that's what you do for skills. Now, about 90% of your time, whenever in any sort of like an exploration or a social interaction type situation, this is the kind of checks that your dungeon master is going to be asking you for. Now, there might be some situations where you have to make a saving throw, where usually you're doing something to avoid something bad that's going to happen to you. And that's when your dungeon master is going to be asking you for a saving throw. All right. You have saving throws corresponding to the 6 key stats that we spoke about. And it's only intelligence and wisdom over here that you have a bonus. Please note you don't add these modifiers to the saving throws, as far as I can remember. I could be wrong. Please check with your DM. And if you know better, please let me know in the comments below. All right. So that was the first big chunk that we've looked at over here. Okay. Proficiency bonus, again, in a one shot, it's not going to matter, but over time, as your character levels up, that is going to be going up as well. In a one shot, you can totally ignore this. Next, we have these 3 boxes that we're going to be talking about. Armor class is about how difficult it is for you to get hurt, or for somebody else to hurt you, rather, right? You could be wearing very high armor, and therefore it's very hard for someone to like beat you and cause you pain. Or you might be in a situation where you are extremely nimble and you're able to dodge very well, right? So whatever the reason, that's it's going to be hard to hurt you. Now, armor class indicates how tough it's going to be for someone to come and hurt you. When you're wearing different kinds of armor, if you're wearing a shield or if you're behind cover, these numbers will change. But usually this is the armor class, or AC, that your dungeon master will be asking you for. Then we have the speed, which is how much you can actually move in one round of combat. And then we have the initiative, which is used as the modifier that you will add to when your DM is asking you for, roll for initiative, right? This is used to determine in which order you will be acting according to you and your enemies and whatnot. Then we have this current hit points. Hit points is about how much health you have, right? Or how much of a beating can you take? And it is a symbolic number, but it's something that's been very popular thanks to video games. And here we have the number 20. What this means is that this person actually has, let me remove the highlight. Got it. Has 20 hit points. And if this drops to 0, they fall unconscious. And when they're unconscious, their allies might come and stabilize them or try to revive them. But if things go really bad, then they will end up rolling death saving throws, right? So when this drops to 0 and you're down, you will have to start rolling death saves, where your dungeon master will ask you to roll a d20. And I believe on 11 or above, or 10 or above, it is a success. 9 or below, 8 is a failure. All right. And 3 successes means you come back with 1 hit point, whereas 3 failures means that you are permanently dead. So just remember, if your hit points is down to 0, it doesn't mean that you die immediately. You have to start rolling death saving throws. Usually taking healing potions and some sort of healing spells can bring your hit points up. There might be other ways for you to gain temporary hit points, and that would be added in over here. And if you're ever getting this, that's a really cool thing, because your temporary hit points have to go off first before your actual hit points get a beating. Okay. Then we have hit dice, which is the number of dice that you can roll in a short rest to regain some of your hit points. Now, this is going to be very, very useful and very relevant when you're dueling in combat. And the other thing that you want to keep in mind on when you're going with combat are your weapons. Okay. Now, in this part of this sheet, I have the names of the weapons, the attack bonus, and the damage type. Beyond that, there is some additional information as a spellcaster. I'm going to try and explain this, and it might be a little bit intimidating, but bear with me. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. When you're fighting, you have different kinds of weapons, right? So one is called the melee weapon, where you are right next to the person and you're hitting them with something, a sword, an axe, a club, or a quarterstaff like this, okay? Then from a range, you could be shooting bows and arrows. I mean, you won't be shooting bows. You can be shooting arrows at your opponents with a bow, or you could be throwing daggers, or you could be throwing flasks of oil, or you could be throwing axes, whatever. Okay, those are ranged weapons. And then you have magic weapons, right? You like as in magic spells that you can cast, and each of these they do different kinds of damage as well. Now, when you're going to be doing an attack roll, right? The way it works is like this. First, you would roll to see if you actually hit the enemy. And if you hit the enemy, then you would roll for damage. Okay? Now, let's take the example of the quarterstaff. When I'm going to be attacking some, let's say a poor little kobold with my quarterstaff, I'm going to be rolling a d20 and adding my attack bonus. Okay? Now, this attack bonus is +2 for the quarterstaff. So let's say I rolled a 17, and then I will add 2, and that becomes 19. I'm going to contrast that with the kobold's armor class, the thing that, which makes it, how hard it is to hit you. Let's say the kobold has an armor class of 15. Now, a total of 17 is higher than 15, which is the kobold's armor class. So therefore, my attack lands. And because it does, I can then roll for damage, which in this case would be a 1d6. All right. So I'll roll a d20, add my attack bonus. I'll compare it with the enemy's armor class. And if it matches or exceeds, that means that my attack lands and I can then do damage, for which I will roll this kind of damage dice. In this case, it's a 1d6. So I'll roll a d6. Let's say I get 3. All right. That means I can do 3 points of damage to that kobold. Then let's say my friend comes in and they're shooting a bow and arrow, right? And their attack roll is a 4, which is not enough, even after adding their attack bonus, to actually go and hurt that kobold. So they miss, and that kobold doesn't take any damage. Now, the different kinds of damage types matter for some enemies because some might be resistant to a certain type of damage, like let's say acid or bludgeoning or piercing or slashing. Your dungeon master will be able to tell you when that is relevant. I will unpack spellcasting a little bit later in this video, later on. I'm going to be skipping ahead and talking about the equipment that is going to be available, right? So this is the stuff that you have in your rucksack, right? So in this case, we have a uniform, we have a gaming set, we have 10 gold. I have some equipment such as like a quarterstaff and an arcane focus, blah, blah, blah. I have a whole bunch of these things. This is quite interesting because you can use this to roleplay. And as you proceed through whatever experience your dungeon master has created for you, you can add new items to this, right? The sky's the limit. And of course, whatever your dungeon master gives you, that's the limit. I'm just going to scoot over a little bit to the left. And since we've almost finished everything in these two columns, I'm going to wrap up this one, which talks about my proficiencies and languages. Proficiencies means that I am capable of, working with these sort of different things. Rapiers are like thin, pointy swords, short swords, hand crossbows. I'm also proficient with one type of gaming set, probably the one that I have. Vehicles, I can ride like a wagon or a cart or a tonga or something. I can also work with daggers, darts, slings, quarterstaffs, like crossbows. Now, what this means is I cannot work with things that do not have proficiency in, for example, heavy armor. As a wizard, I don't have proficiency in that, so I cannot wear that heavy armor. Then we have languages, common and elvish, but there could be other languages like abyssal and sylvan and whatnot, right? If you don't know a language, you can't understand it. Okay. So this is what we've spoken about in the first two parts of the character sheet. And then we're going to be looking at this third column, and then we'll dive into the magic side of things as well. Okay. Right. So this box gives us a very quick overview that we can read and we can, use to role play our character. If you're wondering what does it mean to roleplay, check out the other videos in this channel. I've got plenty of stuff on that front as well. Then below, I have this big box, okay, which contains all my features and traits. Features and traits are special abilities that I have. You can think of it like that, right? So I have this dark vision, which will let me see almost like it's a 1990s CCTV type camera footage. That's how it look. Fey ancestry gives me this ability where I have advantage on saving throws, the things that we spoke about here, where against being charmed, and magic can't put me to sleep. If you're wondering what advantage means, is I will roll the d20 twice and then take the higher number. And the opposite of advantage is disadvantage, where I'll roll the d20 twice and take the lower number. I have sunlight sensitivity, where I have disadvantage on attack rolls and perception checks that need sight if I'm in direct sunlight. And as you can see, there are a whole bunch of other special abilities and traits that I have, and this will vary from character to character. And some of these are because of the race that's presented. Some of these are because of the class that comes in. There might be other abilities that are added because of me reaching a certain level in a certain class. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I just want to highlight that you can read each of these, and you must read each of these so that you know how the whole thing works, okay? That will help you play the game better. And of course, you can ask your Dungeon Master any questions you have, and they'll be more than happy to answer those for you. All right, now that said, let's dive into the next one, which is magic, okay? So remember how I said that you could hit someone with a stick, that's a quarterstaff, or you can cast magic spells, right? Now, the way it works is you, as a character, right now a 3rd level wizard, have a certain number of spell slots, okay? Now, magic casting varies from class to class, level to level as well. So I'm going to explain this at a very high level, but if you want specifics, please go ask your Dungeon Master as well, all right? Now, in this case, you have a bunch of spells slots, all right? You can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 first level spell slots and 2 second level spell slots. What this means is, what is the highest level of spell you can cast per slot, okay? So I have these two, with which the highest I can cast is the 2nd level, so I can also use them for casting first level spells. Similarly, I have 4 first levels, so the highest I can cast with them is the 1st level. There are 0th level spells as well, and they're called cantrips, and 3 of them, okay? Now, there are some spells that I have prepared, such as Burning Hands, Cloud of Daggers, Flaming Sphere, Invisibility, and Scorching Ray. I can choose a new list from your spellbook after a long rest. Now, obviously, you'll have to work with your Dungeon Master for this, but these are specific spells. Now, if you're wondering what these spells are, well, in the second sheet, we do have that, okay? We have, for example, Scorching Ray, that's explained over here. And then we have Flaming Sphere, that's explained over here. Now, please note, these are 2nd level spells, right? Invisibility, Scorching Ray, what else? Flaming Sphere, Cloud of Daggers. These are all 2nd level spells. Now, what does that mean? It means that I can only cast 2 2nd level spells until I get my spell slots back at the end of a long rest. I can also cast 4 1st level spells. And in this particular character sheet, I have the following 1st level spells. Looking at this. So, whoops, going back a bit. There we go. So my 1st level spells are Burning Hands, Comprehend Languages, Detect Magic, Identify, Alarm, and Find Familiar. All right, so these are my 1st level spells. I can cast any of these spells up to 4 times. I can cast the same spell 4 times, or I can cast each one of these until I've used up all of my 4 spell slots of the 1st level. And let's say I've used up all 4 and I still want to go ahead and cast a 1st level spell, then I can still use my 2nd level spell slot, the 2 of them, to still cast the 1st level spell as well. Now, usually when you're casting a spell, you're going to be using intelligence because you're a wizard, and any spell that requires your target to make a saving throw, your spell save DC is 12. This will become relevant in combat when your DM asks for it, okay? Now, in terms of casting, there is this thing called ritual casting, where you can cast some spells which have the ritual tag, but it'll take you 10 minutes longer and it will not use up a spell slot. So let's take a look at what are some of the ritual slots that ritual spells that we have. So Burning Hands is not one, but Comprehend Languages. Look at that. That is a ritual spell. So that means I can cast this for free as long as I'm willing to spend 10 minutes on it. Same thing with Detect Magic as well, and same thing with Identify as well, and with Alarm. Okay, and with Find Familiar. So there are a lot of spells that I can cast off the first level as a ritual, which means my spell slots aren't used up, but I'm spending an extra 10 minutes. If you're wondering why does that matter, in the game, those 10 minutes that your character is spending could have some consequences. Check with your DM. All right, let's take a look at some of the spells, and or at least one of them, and then we'll see what happens. All right, I like the name of this spell, Cloud of Daggers. Let's take a look. All right, so first off, this thing, Cloud of Daggers, is the name of the spell. Okay, and then this level tells me what level spell slot do I need to cast this spell. And Conjuration is the school of magic, right? Where I'm making things appear. You have Evocation, you have Abjuration, you have Divination, you have Necromancy. You have a whole bunch of different schools. You don't need to know that for a one shot. If you're just getting started, just know that it's a type of magic, okay? The casting time is one action. Different spells can have different casting times. For example, like we saw earlier, we could be casting this as a ritual, so it'll be one action plus 10 minutes, right? Whereas if you look at Find Familiar, the casting time is 1 hour, all right? So different spells have different durations, okay? Then the range is how far away can you still cast the spell. Competence is verbal, somatic, and material. Verbal means that you have to say some words. Somatic means that you have to wiggle your fingers, I'm guessing, or you have to do something with your body. And material means that there's usually a material cost. Most of the times, your dungeon master is going to say that you have something called an arcane focus that we saw over here. Remember this? If you have a arcane focus, you can usually bypass the need for any material component that does not have a price. Okay. And then the duration is about how long the spell will last. This has concentration and up to 1 minute. If it's a concentration spell, if you get hit, then you have to check that you haven't lost your concentration, and boom, you're going to be okay with that. And then this is the spell description that talks about what it does. In this spell, you're going to be filling the air with spinning daggers in a 5-foot cube, or 1 square, 1 hex, centered on the point you choose within range. A creature takes 4d4 slashing damage when it enters the spell's area for the first time, and blah, 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 blah. All right, so each spell has its own description, and there you go. That's how you work with spellcasting. Now, of course, each character is going to be having a different approach. Like warlocks, the number of spell slots they have and the kind of spells they cast are going to be different from, let's say, what a paladin could cast, right? Or what a sorcerer could cast. Now, check out their character sheet. And I got mine from this place. And if you want more, you should go to this URL, joe.natoli.ca. And they've got a bunch of, available character sheets that are pre-generated. I really like them. This is what I use whenever I am running my own games, whether at conventions or in meetups. So if you have any questions, leave a comment below and I'll be able to help. Cheers.